The entire Galactic Council spent 3 centuries preparing for humanity's inevitable conquest of the galaxy, building defenses, forming alliances, and basically wedding themselves in terror. While humans were over there arguing about whether pineapple belongs on pizza, I'm Admiral Kex-9 of the Viridian Fleet, and I was there when it all went sideways. Trust me, you haven't lived until you have watched a 1,000-year military strategy crumble because nobody bothered to actually talk to the species they were afraid of. The war started in 2387, though the humans didn't know it yet. Hell, they wouldn't figure it out for another 2 years. The Council had been monitoring Earth for decades, watching these bipedal maniacs tear around their solar system like they own the place. They'd colonized Mars, set up mining operations in the asteroid belt, and were already eyeing the outer planets with that predatory gleam that every species recognizes. Expansion phase confirmed, reported Science Officer Talvex during our first briefing. Population growth exponential. Technological advancement accelerating beyond projected parameters. Recommendation: immediate containment protocols. The Council's logic was sound, I will give them that. Every successful species follows the same pattern. Expand, consume, dominate. The Hegemony did it. The Confederation did it. Even we Viridians had our imperial phase before we got civilized. But humans? They were doing it faster and messier than anyone had seen before. Look at their military expenditure, Counselor Zeth Prime had said, gesturing to the holographic data streams. 37% of their planetary resources dedicated to warfare. They have weaponized everything from their atmosphere to their electromagnetic spectrum. They are building ships that could theoretically reach 12% light speed. What the Council didn't understand was that humans weren't preparing for galactic conquest. They were preparing for Tuesday. The first shot was fired by the Hegemony. Naturally, those six-legged control freaks had been itching for a fight ever since humans started broadcasting their entertainment signals across half the galaxy. Apparently, something called reality television was considered a war crime in 14 systems. Commander Brextal led the initial strike force. 300 ships, state-of-the-art weaponry, enough firepower to sterilize a moon. The target was a human mining station in the Ceres region, because if you're going to send a message, you might as well make it loud. Here's where it gets interesting. The mining station designation New Pittsburgh had exactly 0 military personnel. It was run by a skeleton crew of 43 miners, 3 administrators, and 1 very confused security guard named Pete Morrison. Pete was having coffee when the Hegemony fleet decloaked. Real coffee, not the synthetic stuff, because apparently humans will risk interplanetary shipping costs for decent caffeine. He looked up at his monitors, saw 300 alien warships surrounding his little rock, and did what any reasonable person would do. He called his supervisor. "Hey, Linda? Yeah, it's Pete. We have got a situation out here. There's a bunch of ships outside. Alien ships. With weapons. Yeah, I know it's weird. Should I fill out an incident report?" Linda Zhao, the station administrator, was in the middle of quarterly budget reviews when Pete's call came through. She looked at her screen, confirmed that yes, there were indeed 300 hostile vessels surrounding their facility, and made a decision that would echo through galactic history. She put them on hold. "Pete, I'm in the middle of something. Can you handle it? Maybe try the radio." Meanwhile, Commander Brextal was growing impatient. His carefully planned intimidation display was supposed to result in immediate surrender, followed by a broadcast to Earth demonstrating humanity's helplessness. Instead, he was getting elevator music. "Commander," his communications officer reported, "the humans they're playing music at us." "What kind of music?" "It appears to be instrumental arrangements of popular songs. Very slow, very repetitive." Brextal's throat sacs inflated with frustration. "Demand their surrender. Tell them they face the might of the Hegemony Armada." The comm officer tried for 20 minutes to get through to someone in charge. Finally, Pete picked up. "New Pittsburgh Mining Station, this is Pete. How can I help you? Surrender immediately or face annihilation." Brextal roared into the communicator. There was a pause. Then, "Sir, this is a mining station. We don't really have anything to surrender. Are you looking for the Port Authority?" because they are back on Mars, and their office hours are, "We are here to demonstrate the futility of human expansion. Your species will bow before the hegemony." Another pause. Okay, that's a lot to unpack. Are you guys having some kind of territorial dispute? Because honestly, sir, I just work security. I'm not really qualified to handle international incidents. Or interplanetary incidents? Look, I'm going to need you to hold while I get my supervisor. More elevator music. Brextal spent the next hour on hold, listening to instrumental versions of The Girl from Ipanema and Fly Me to the Moon. His tactical officers were getting restless. The ship's AI kept suggesting they just blow up the station and move on. But something about the humans' complete lack of fear or understanding was throwing off his entire operational framework. Finally, Linda Zhao came on the line. "This is Administrator Zhao. I understand you are having some kind of issue with our operations here. Your species is a threat to galactic stability. We demand immediate cessation of all expansion activities. Sir, I appreciate your concerns, but we are a private mining company. We don't set expansion policy. That would be several different government agencies, and honestly, they don't really coordinate with each other. Have you tried contacting the UN? Or maybe the Mars Colonial Authority? They are better equipped to handle this sort of thing. You will surrender this facility immediately." "Sir, I can't do that. This facility is privately owned. If you want to file a complaint about our operations, you will need to contact our corporate office. I can transfer you to customer service." What happened next would be debated in military academies for decades. Brextal, faced with the prospect of being transferred to customer service, made a tactical decision that violated every principle of civilized warfare. He hung up. Back on the station, Linda shrugged and went back to her budget reports. Pete finished his coffee and resumed his patrol. The rest of the crew continued their shifts, occasionally glancing at the monitors to see if the weird alien ships were still there. They were, but they weren't doing anything threatening. Just sitting there, waiting. "Think they are tourists?" asked Jake Martinez, the chief engineer. "Maybe it's a cultural exchange program," suggested Dr. Kim Patel, the station's geologist. "We should probably be more welcoming." So they invited the aliens for dinner. The invitation was broadcast on standard frequencies, accompanied by a menu of the station's food synthesizer options and a cheerful explanation of human dining customs. The message was signed by the entire crew and included a small attached file containing Earth music labeled Dinner Ambience. Commander Brextal received this transmission while his fleet was still holding formation around the mining station. His communications officer played the message twice before anyone could fully process what they were hearing. They're inviting us to dinner, sir." "Dinner?" "Yes, sir. Apparently, it's a social bonding ritual. They are offering something called lasagna and chocolate cake. The music file appears to be jazz." Brextal's command staff exchanged glances. In 3 centuries of military service, none of them had encountered anything like this. Their tactical manuals covered everything from planetary sieges to diplomatic immunity, but there was no protocol for being invited to a potluck by your intended victims. "Sir," his tactical officer ventured, "should we consider this a form of psychological warfare?" "Possibly. What's our intelligence assessment of human combat capabilities?" "Based on their entertainment broadcasts, they are highly aggressive, technologically advanced, and completely unpredictable. They have developed weapons that defy conventional physics and military strategies that border on insanity." What the Hegemony intelligence services didn't understand was that humans made movies for fun, not training. The idea that every human was secretly a combination of John Wick, Tony Stark, and Ellen Ripley was flattering, but not exactly accurate. While Brextal was trying to figure out whether dinner was a trap, the humans were having their own problems. Specifically, they were running out of food. The station supply ship was 3 days overdue, and the crew was down to emergency rations and whatever Jake could coax out of the hydroponics bay. The alien fleet was still there, still not doing anything threatening, but their presence was making everyone nervous. "Maybe we should call for help," suggested Pete during the daily crew meeting. "From who?" Linda asked. "The nearest military installation is 6 weeks away. Mars Command is dealing with that labor dispute. And Earth. She gestured helplessly. Earth thinks we are a mining station. They are not exactly going to send a fleet. What about the aliens? They have been sitting out there for 3 days. Maybe they're lost. Dr. Patel cleared her throat. Actually, I have been monitoring their communications. Their language is complex, but I think I'm starting to understand some of it. They seem to be confused. Confused about what? About us. They keep referring to human military doctrine and strategic deception. I think they are expecting us to do something. Like what? I'm not sure. Attack them? Surrender? Run away screaming? They seem genuinely puzzled by our dinner invitation. Linda rubbed her temples. Okay, this is getting ridiculous. Pete, try raising them on the radio again. Maybe we can figure out what they want. This time, Pete got through immediately. Commander Brextal himself answered, his voice tense with military precision. Human vessel, state your intentions. Well, sir, we were hoping you could state yours. You have been sitting out there for 3 days, and we are starting to worry about you. Are you having engine trouble? Do you need supplies? There was a long pause. Then, you are concerned about our welfare? Of course. I mean, space is dangerous. If you're stuck out there, we'd be happy to help. We have got basic repair facilities, and our synthesizers can handle most standard nutritional requirements, assuming you don't have any weird dietary restrictions. Brextal muted his communicator and turned to his staff. They are offering us technical assistance. It's obviously a trap, sir. But what kind of trap? They are completely surrounded. They have no weapons, no shields, no escape route. What could they possibly gain by helping us? His science officer, a methodical creature named Vex-Seven, spoke up. Sir, I have been analyzing their behavior patterns. I don't think they understand that we are at war. What do you mean? They're treating this as a first contact scenario. They think we are explorers, not conquerors. Their responses are consistent with diplomatic protocol, not military strategy. That's impossible. Our intelligence clearly indicates that humans are aggressive, expansionist, and militaristic. Yes, sir, but our intelligence is based on their entertainment media. What if those broadcasts aren't training materials? What if they are fictional? The command deck fell silent. The idea that humans created elaborate military fantasies for entertainment purposes was so alien that it took several minutes to process. You are suggesting, Brextal said slowly, that humans fight imaginary wars for fun. It would explain their behavior, sir. They are not soldiers. They are miners. Meanwhile, back on the station, the crew was dealing with their own revelation. Dr. Patel had finally cracked enough of the alien language to understand what the fleet was broadcasting to each other. They think we are warriors, she announced during another emergency meeting. They keep talking about human military doctrine and strategic patience. They're convinced we are planning some kind of devastating counterattack. But we are not, said Jake. We are just here. I know that. You know that. But they don't know that. And apparently, our complete lack of panic is being interpreted as supernatural confidence. Pete laughed. So they're scared of us because we are not scared of them. Exactly. It's like a cosmic game of chicken, except we don't know we are playing. The standoff continued for another week. The Hegemony fleet maintained their position, broadcasting increasingly desperate tactical analyses to their command structure. The mining station crew went about their business, occasionally waving at the alien ships when they passed by the observation windows that BY Day 10. Commander Brextal was having what humans might call a nervous breakdown. His superiors were demanding results, his crew was questioning orders, and humans had started broadcasting cooking shows. Not at them, mind you, just in general. Apparently, one of the miners, a cheerful woman named Rosa Delgado, had decided to document her attempts at making bread in zero gravity. She was streaming it to her family back on Earth, complete with running commentary about yeast behavior in artificial atmosphere. The key is patience, Rosa explained to her camera while floating upside down in the station's tiny kitchen. You can't rush fermentation, whether you are on Earth or orbiting an asteroid. The yeast doesn't care about your schedule. Brextal was watching this broadcast with the intensity of a cryptographer trying to crack enemy codes. His tactical staff had theories about everything from metabolic warfare to psychological conditioning. The truth that Rosa was just bored and liked baking was apparently too simple to consider. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving another transmission from the human facility. Another dinner invitation?" "No, sir. They are asking if we'd like to participate in something called movie night. They are planning to broadcast a selection of human entertainment and wanted to know if we had any preferences for genre." Brextal rubbed his cranial ridges. "What genres are they offering?" "Comedy, drama, action, romance, horror, and something called sci-fi. SCI-FI. Science fiction, sir. Apparently, it's speculative entertainment based on hypothetical technological advancement and space exploration." The irony was lost on exactly no one in the command center. Here they were, actual aliens engaged in actual space warfare, being invited to watch humans pretend to be in space wars with fictional aliens. "Recommend response, sir." Brextal was quiet for a long moment. Then, asked them what they recommend. 20 minutes later, Pete Morrison was back on the radio, sounding genuinely excited. "Oh, great question. For first-time viewers, I definitely suggest starting with something classic but accessible. Maybe The Princess Bride or Galaxy Quest. Both are really entertaining, and they don't require a lot of cultural context." "Galaxy Quest," Vex-Seven whispered to his commander. "That's the one about incompetent space warriors who accidentally save the galaxy." "How do you know that?" "I may have been monitoring their entertainment broadcasts for research purposes, sir." Brextal stared at his science officer. "You have been watching human movies?" "For intelligence gathering, sir. I needed to understand their military mindset." "And what did you learn?" Vex-Seven shifted uncomfortably. "That humans are either the most sophisticated psychological warfare specialists in the galaxy, or they are completely insane. Which do you think it is?" "Honestly, sir, I'm starting to lean toward option 3. Which is, they're exactly what they appear to be. Ordinary people doing ordinary jobs who happen to live in space." While the Hegemony fleet was having an existential crisis, the humans were dealing with more practical problems. Their supply ship had finally arrived, but the pilot, Captain Danny Chun, was understandably nervous about the small army of alien warships surrounding his destination. "New Pittsburgh, this is Supply Runner 7. You guys want to explain why there's a Hegemony battle fleet parked in your front yard?" Linda Zhao sighed. "Danny, we have been asking them the same question for 2 weeks. They showed up, demanded our surrender, then got confused when we offered them dinner. Now they're staying for movie night. They're what now? Long story. Can you dock on the far side? We don't want to make them nervous." "Make them nervous?" "Linda, they have got enough firepower to crack a planet." "Yeah, but they seem really anxious about proper protocol. Just be polite and don't make any sudden movements." Captain Chun had been running supply routes for 15 years. He'd dealt with pirates, bureaucrats, and at least 3 different species of hostile wildlife. But this was the first time he'd had to navigate a diplomatic crisis while delivering toilet paper and coffee filters. His approach to Docking Bay, too, took him directly past the Hegemony flagship. The massive vessel bristled with weapon systems and sensor arrays, hull scarred from a dozen different conflicts. As Chin's little cargo hauler drifted past, he could see alien faces pressed against the observation ports, watching him with what looked like intense curiosity. On impulse, he waved. The gesture caused pandemonium on the Hegemony bridge. Brextal's tactical officer immediately went to high alert, convinced that the human pilot was signaling an attack. The science team began analyzing the gesture for hidden meaning. The communications array lit up with chatter as every ship in the fleet tried to interpret what they'd just witnessed. "Hostile movement," someone shouted. "Stand down." Brextalbart. Analysis, Vex-Seven. "What did we just observe?" The human pilot extended his upper appendage in a rhythmic motion, "Sir. Based on my cultural research, I believe it was a greeting." "A greeting?" "Yes, sir. Humans frequently acknowledge each other's presence through visual gestures. It appears to be a social courtesy." "He was being polite." "Extremely polite, sir. The fact that he acknowledged our presence suggests respect for our position and authority." Commander Brextal was beginning to understand why so many military campaigns ended in psychiatric casualties. Back on the station, Captain Chun was unloading supplies and getting the full briefing from an increasingly frazzled Linda Zhao. "So let me get this straight," Chun said, hefting a crate of medical supplies. "They have been sitting out there for 2 weeks, doing nothing because they are waiting for us to act like the military threat they think we are." "That's our best guess." Dr. Patel thinks they are operating on completely different assumptions about human behavior. "What kind of assumptions?" "That we are all highly trained soldiers with access to superweapons and advanced military tactics." Chun snorted. "Have they met us? I got lost 3 times on the way here because I forgot to update my navigation charts. That's what makes it so weird. Every normal thing we do, they interpret as evidence of our tactical brilliance." As if to prove her point, Rosa Delgado chose that moment to float by carrying a tray of fresh bread rolls, humming something that sounded like opera. "Rosa's been documenting her cooking experiments," Linda explained. "They think it's a form of psychological warfare. Cooking, apparently, the concept of comfort food doesn't translate well. They think she's demonstrating our resource abundance to demoralize their forces." Chun shook his head. "This is the weirdest thing I have ever heard. And I once delivered supplies to a colony that was convinced their potatoes were achieving sentience." "Were they?" "No, it turned out the storage facility had a gas leak. But this is weirder. While Chun was unloading supplies, something interesting was happening on the Hegemony flagship. Vex-Seven had finally worked up the courage to approach his commander with a radical suggestion. "Sir, request permission to attempt direct communication with the humans. We have been communicating with them for 2 weeks." "Yes, sir, but not honestly. We have been trying to intimidate them, and they have been trying to be helpful. What if we just ask them what they want?" Brexdal's throat sacs deflated slowly. "You want to abandon our strategic advantage for conversation?" "Sir, with respect, what strategic advantage? They're not afraid of us. They are not fighting us. They are not even particularly interested in us, except as potential dinner guests. Our entire operational framework is based on assumptions that appear to be incorrect. And you think talking will help? I think it can't make things worse, sir." 20 minutes later, Pete Morrison was answering another call from the alien fleet. This time, instead of demands for surrender, he heard something he wasn't expecting. "Human facility, this is Science Officer Vex-Seven of the Hegemony vessel, Iron Talon. We request clarification on several matters of mutual interest." "Sure thing," Pete replied. "What can I help you with? Are you planning to attack us?" Pete blinked. "Attack you? Why would we attack you?" "Because we are occupying your territory and interfering with your operations." "Well, yeah, but you're not really interfering. I mean, you're just sitting there. Are you planning to attack us?" "That was our original intention, yes." "Oh, why?" The simple question hung in space for several seconds. On the Hegemony bridge, Vex-Seven looked around at his colleagues, all of whom were suddenly very interested in their control panels. Because our intelligence indicated that humans are an aggressive, expansionist species that poses a threat to galactic stability. "Huh, that's interesting. Are we doing something that seems threatening? You are expanding into space at an unprecedented rate. You have colonized multiple worlds and constructed industrial facilities throughout your solar system. Well, yeah, we need somewhere to live. Earth's getting pretty crowded, and there's a lot of useful stuff out here in space. But we're not trying to threaten anybody. Mostly we just want to mine asteroids and maybe find somewhere nice to retire." Vex-Seven muted his communicator and turned to his commander. "Sir, I don't think they understand the implications of their expansion." "What do you mean?" "They appear to view space colonization as a practical necessity, not a strategic advantage. They are not building an empire. They're just spreading out. That's what every expanding species claims." "Yes, sir, but most expanding species don't invite their potential enemies to dinner." Meanwhile, Pete was consulting with his crewmates about the bizarre conversation he was having with the alien fleet. The consensus was that the whole situation was probably just a big misunderstanding. "Tell them we are not interested in conquering anybody," Linda suggested. "Maybe that will help. Also ask if they need anything," added Rosa. "They have been sitting out there for weeks. They must be running low on supplies." Pete returned to the radio. Vex-Seven? We talked it over, and we want to make sure you understand that we are not trying to conquer the galaxy or anything. We're just miners. We dig up rocks, process them into useful materials, and ship them back to human settlements. We're not soldiers. You're not soldiers. Nope. I'm a security guard. Linda's an administrator. Rosa's a food service technician who got cross-trained on life support systems. Jake's an engineer, but he specializes in mining equipment, not weapons. Dr. Patel's a geologist. None of us have any military training, but your species has an extensive military infrastructure. Sure, back home, but that's for protecting Earth and the colonies from, well, I guess from people like you. No offense. None taken. But if you are not soldiers, why aren't you afraid of us? Pete considered this. Should we be? I mean, you've been pretty polite so far, and you haven't actually done anything threatening. We have 300 warships surrounding your facility. Yeah, but you haven't shot at us or anything. Plus, Rosa made extra bread this morning, and it seems rude to panic when we have got fresh food to share. On the Hegemony flagship, the entire command staff was listening to this exchange with growing bewilderment. Their carefully planned military operation had turned into the strangest first contact scenario in recorded history. Sir, the tactical officer said quietly, "What are our orders?" Brextal was staring at the communication display, where Pete Morrison's cheerful voice was explaining the nutritional benefits of whole grain bread in zero-gravity environments. "I have no idea," he admitted. The standoff was finally broken by an intervention from an unexpected source. Captain Shun, who had been listening to the radio chatter while unloading his cargo, decided that everybody was overthinking the situation. "You know what?" he announced over the general communication channel. "This is ridiculous. Vex-Seven, right? Why don't you just come over here and talk to us in person? Bring a few of your friends. We will sort this whole thing out over dinner. You are inviting us to visit your facility. Sure, why not? You seem reasonable enough. And Rosa's been cooking for days. We have got way more food than we can eat. This could be a trap. It could be," Chin agreed. "But if we wanted to trap you, don't you think we would have done something besides float around here, eating sandwiches and watching movies?" Vex-Seven looked at his commander. Brextal looked at his tactical staff. The tactical staff looked at each other. "Permission to accept the invitation, sir?" Vex-Seven asked. "This violates approximately 47 different military protocols." "Yes, sir. Should we do it anyway?" Brextal was quiet for a long moment. Then he activated the ship-wide communication system. "All vessels, this is Admiral Brextal. Stand down to condition yellow. Science Officer Vex-Seven will be conducting a diplomatic mission to the human facility. All ships maintain position, but do not engage unless directly fired upon." "Sir," his communications officer asked, "should we inform command about this development?" "Absolutely not. If this goes badly, I want it to be my failure, not a fleet-wide embarrassment." 2 hours later, Vex-Seven and a small diplomatic team were boarding a shuttle for the short trip to New Pittsburgh mining station. The Hegemony officer was nervous, but also genuinely curious about these strange humans who treated first contact like a social event. The docking procedure was surprisingly normal. The human station's automated systems guided their shuttle into a small bay, where Pete Morrison was waiting to greet them personally. "Welcome to New Pittsburgh," Pete said, extending his hand in the universal human gesture of greeting. "I'm Pete. Thanks for coming over." Vex-Seven cautiously extended one of his own appendages and found himself engaged in what humans called a handshake. It was oddly reassuring. "Thank you for the invitation. I am Science Officer Vex-Seven. These are my colleagues, Tactical Specialist Gen 4 and Communications Officer Lex 2. Great to meet you all. Come on, I will show you around." The tour of the mining station was brief but illuminating. The humans had built a functional, comfortable living space in the middle of nowhere, complete with recreational facilities, a small garden, and what appeared to be a collection of books and games. "It's not much," Pete admitted, "but it's home. We are out here for 18-month rotations, so we try to make it comfortable." "This is a military installation?" Gen 4 asked, looking around at the cozy common area where Rosa was arranging fresh flowers in a zero-gravity planter. Military? No, this is a mining platform. The company owns it, and we just work here. But surely you have defensive capabilities? Pete pointed to a small locker marked emergency equipment. We have got a couple of flare guns for emergencies, and there's a distress beacon that can reach Mars Command if we have a real problem. But that's about it. Vex-Seven was beginning to understand just how badly the Galactic Council had misread the situation. The dinner that followed was perhaps the most surreal diplomatic event in galactic history. 6 humans and 3 aliens sat around a small table, sharing food and conversation while 300 warships waited outside. So, Linda asked, passing a bowl of Rosa's famous zero-gravity stew, "What made you guys think we were planning to conquer the galaxy?" Lex 2, who had been monitoring human broadcasts for months, tried to explain. "Your entertainment transmissions depict humans as highly aggressive warriors with advanced weapons and tactical expertise." Jake laughed. "You mean the movies? Those are just stories. We make them up for fun. You create fictional military scenarios for entertainment." "Sure. Doesn't everyone?" "No," Vex-Seven said quietly. "No, we don't." Rosa looked genuinely concerned. "That sounds kind of sad. Don't you guys have hobbies?" "Hobbies? You know, things you do for fun. Games, sports, art, music. Things that don't have any practical purpose except that they make you happy." The 3 aliens exchanged glances. In their culture, all activities serve strategic or survival purposes. The concept of doing something purely for enjoyment was alien in the most literal sense. "We have recreational periods," Gen 4 said carefully. "Time allocated for physical maintenance and psychological restoration between duty shifts." "That's not the same thing," Dr. Patel observed. "Recreation is about joy, not maintenance." "What is joy?" Vex-Seven asked. The question hung in the air for a moment. Then Rosa stood up and disappeared into the kitchen area. She returned a few minutes later with a tray of chocolate chip cookies, still warm from the oven. "Here," she said, offering one to each of the aliens. "Try this." Vex-Seven took a bite, and his entire facial structure changed. His eyes widened, his breathing pattern shifted, and something that might have been a smile appeared around his mandibles. "This is pleasant," he said in wonder. "That's joy," Rosa explained. "The feeling you get when something is good just because it's good." By the end of the evening, the 3 alien visitors had experienced their first taste of chocolate, learned to play poker, and listened to Jake's extensive collection of Earth music. More importantly, they had begun to understand that humans were not the military threat the Galactic Council feared. "We should return to our ship," Vex-Seven said reluctantly as the station's artificial night cycle began. "But I hope we can continue these discussions." "Anytime," Pete replied. "You guys are welcome here, whenever you want to visit." The shuttle trip back to the flagship was quiet. Vex-Seven and his team were processing everything they had learned, while trying to figure out how to explain it to their commander. "Sir," Gen 4 finally said, "I don't think humans understand that they are supposed to be dangerous." "What do you mean?" "They're exactly what they appear to be. Ordinary people doing ordinary work. They're not plotting galactic conquest, because it never occurred to them that galactic conquest was an option." Vex-Seven nodded slowly. "They're not warriors pretending to be civilians. They're civilians who accidentally look like warriors because they build everything bigger and louder than necessary." "So what do we tell the admiral?" "The truth. And then we hope he doesn't have us all recycled for incompetence." Commander Brextal listened to their report in stunned silence. When they finished, he sat quietly for several minutes, processing the implications. "You are telling me," he said finally, "that we have spent 2 weeks in a standoff with a mining station because we mistook their entertainment broadcasts for military intelligence." "Yes, sir." "And that they have been trying to help us this entire time because they thought we might be lost or in distress." "Yes, sir." "And that their complete lack of fear was not evidence of superior tactical planning, but rather evidence that they had no idea we were supposed to be enemies." "Correct, sir." Brextal rubbed his cranial ridges again. "Communications, give me a direct line to Galactic Command. This is going to require some explaining." The conversation with High Command was brief and unpleasant. Brextal's superiors were not amused by his report, particularly the part about sharing dinner with the enemy. But the tactical implications were undeniable. If humans really were just civilians with industrial technology, then the Galactic Council's entire defensive strategy was based on false assumptions. They had prepared for war with a species that didn't even know they were supposed to be at war. "New orders, sir," the communications officer asked. "Stand down all weapons. Resume standard patrol formation. And send a message to the mining station." "What should it say, sir?" "Apologize for the misunderstanding. And ask if the dinner invitation is still open." 3 hours later, the crew of New Pittsburgh Mining Station received an official communication from the Hegemony Fleet Command. It was formal, diplomatic, and utterly unprecedented in galactic history. To the personnel of New Pittsburgh Mining Station, the message began. "The Hegemony Fleet extends its sincere apologies for any inconvenience caused by our recent military exercises in your vicinity. We now understand that our presence may have been misinterpreted as hostile, and we wish to clarify that no such hostility was intended." Pete read the message aloud to the assembled crew, who listened with growing amusement. Furthermore, the message continued. "We would be honored to accept your gracious invitation to dine with your facility personnel if the offer remains open. We believe that direct cultural exchange will be beneficial for all parties involved." "They want to come to dinner?" Rosa asked. "All of them," Jake added. Linda looked out at the 300 ships still surrounding their tiny station. "This is going to require a lot more food." And that's how the first Interstellar War ended before it began. Not with weapons or treaties or grand diplomatic gestures, but with an invitation to dinner and the radical idea that maybe, just maybe, the galaxy was big enough for everyone. The Galactic Council eventually revised their threat assessment of humanity from imminent military conquest to enthusiastic but harmless neighbors. Trade agreements were established, cultural exchange programs were implemented, and Rosa Delgado's zero-gravity cooking show became the most popular entertainment broadcast in 12 systems. As for Pete Morrison, he went back to his security rounds, occasionally waving at the alien ships that had become a permanent part of the neighborhood. He never did figure out what all the fuss was about, but he was glad everyone worked it out over dinner, because sometimes the best way to win a war is to not realize you are fighting one.